Hello and welcome. After many requests, the time has finally come, a Salamanders thematic list build, and it just so happens to fall in line with reaching the 10k subscriber landmark. I suppose that means the next Salamanders list build would have to be when the channel reaches 20k. But all jokes aside, reaching 10,000 subscribers means so much, and for the occasion I decided to update and clean up my avatar graphics. For those who follow my hobby updates on Instagram, you'll recognize that this new coloration is a more accurate depiction of my Firekeeper's color scheme. But I think that's enough preamble. Here we are, 10,000 plus strong. Thanks to all of those who made it possible and supported the channel along the way. Now, let's get into a thematic list build for the Salamanders. For those new, the goal of the Thematic List Build series is to create a 2k Strike Force sized list based around a theme central to the focused faction. And with that stated, let's take a look at the subfaction rules. The Salamander's subfaction rule is Forged in Battle. It gives Salamander's units the ability to reroll a wound roll each time they shoot or fight, and treat enemy attacks of AP-1 as 0. Compared to its 8th edition iteration, it has gotten a little weaker, as Forged in Battle did lose the perk to reroll a hit roll. But honestly, it's a fair concession. It's still a great chapter tactic, it's kept the more important reroll, while offering a defensive layer that also speaks to the build quality of their armor. The Salamander's Doctrine bonus is Promethean Cult, which has received no changes from its initial debut in 8th edition, and remains an ability that allows Flame and Melta weapons to add 1 to wound rolls while the Tactical Doctrine is active. And sure, Flame and Melta weapons are not seen on every unit, but a potent subfaction rule that allows for a faction's thematic qualities to shine is definitely worthy of praise. And it's noteworthy that in 9th edition, those weapon types gained systematic buffs, which makes us of Vulkan's bloodline very happy. All said, the Salamander's perks are all about the quality of their craftsmanship, and their proficiency with flame-based weaponry. When it comes to rule critiques, there is one thing that really stands out in the Salamander's transition of rules to 9th edition, and it has to do with Adrax Agatone. Specifically, his melee weapon Malleus Noctum, which is clearly a unique heavy thunderhammer. It was given rules to make it superior to the standard variety when Adrax was released during 8th edition. This is the status quo, and it's most certainly correct. The unique named relic versions of normal weapons should be better than the norm. However, with the 9th edition weapon rework, heavy thunderhammers were improved, and now share the same profile as Malleus Noctum. This improvement in itself isn't bad. Heavy thunderhammers dealing d6 damage was a pretty moronic design decision, to put it mildly. So making thunderhammers more powerful than a regular one makes good sense. But in all their wisdom, GW seem to have forgotten about Malleus Noctum. And I say forgotten because in the Salamander's FAQ they did remember to update Vulkan Histan's Gauntlet of the Forge. So what we're left with is a captain from a chapter renowned for forging weapons of unparalleled quality, wielding a unique heavy thunderhammer forged by his own hands that is no better than the standard issue heavy thunderhammer. How pitiful. And to be clear, a fix for this isn't even that hard. Firstly, Malleus Noctum doesn't even have to be that much more powerful. Just remove the -1 to hit, so it comes across as well balanced. But more importantly, GW has a digital platform with which to update these FAQs and erratas. Though with no updates to that FAQ since its initial release, which was about 7 months ago, there is clearly no desire to do so. The reality is, Malleus Noctum will remain embarrassing until GW have a new Salamander's publication for consumers to buy. And it's this poor attitude towards the customers of this premium hobby that draws my ire. It honestly makes me wonder if it's even worth buying codexes. But that topic is probably better saved for a future dissection video. Let's get back on track. Regarding the thematic objectives of the list, they are a list designed to purge their enemies with righteous fire, which also does naturally tie in with where the Salamanders excel, the close-range firefight. Now, let's go over to the list breakdown. The list is structured around a battalion. Let's start with the warlord of this list, which is none other than Adrax Agatone. Armed with a specialized flamer and hammer, albeit one that is a tad underwhelming, Adrax is the very picture of the Salamanders, exemplifying their themes nearly perfectly. Mechanically, he's a captain with weapons that let him swing extremely hard, and he has an aura to allow core units near him to add 1 to their wound rolls in the fight phase. And his Drakehide cloak reduces his damage suffered by 1, giving him a nice defensive layer. His Warlord trait, Lord of Fire, will allow units with flame weapons near him to re-roll the number of shots, which will help boost their performance, which is also further compounded by Promethean Cult's benefits. Filling out 2 troop slots are 2 tactical squads, loaded out identically in a multi-melta combi-melta configuration, with the squad sergeants taking a chain sword. Each of these squads have their own Razorback transports, fitted with twin heavy bolters and a hunter-killer missile. This Melta-loaded tac squad is a pretty unique flex for the Salamanders, and mobilized in Razorbacks situates them to get into range and turn their targets to slag. Not totally dissimilar to another Imperium faction. So with the mobilized Meltagun infantry covered, let's move on to the Flame Squad, which will be a 4-man strong Flamestorm Aggressor Squad. Aggressors have always been strong, and in 9th edition, Flamers are better than ever, and with Salamanders they're even better. And with Adrax's Lord of Fire Warlord trait and his ability to boost their combat potential, well, you get the idea. Mechanically, aggressors are such a solid pick for the Salamanders. And thematically, they are probably the closest thing we have in the 41st millennium to Pyroclasts. Transporting those 4 aggressors will be a repulsor. It's kitted out in a twin last talon configuration, which will allow it to provide some anti-armor fire support as the aggressors make their way to the midfield. The repulsor has a transport capacity of 10 Primaris Marines, because it's a bigot. Since Gravis models take up 2 slots each, this squad of 4 aggressors leaves 2 slots remaining. One is for Adrax, since he complements them so well, and the other is for our next HQ. It will be a Primaris Librarian, taken as a Chief Librarian. Being a chief, he knows an additional power from the discipline of your choice. Mechanically, the Librarius discipline is probably the stronger choice, as the capacity for Psychic Fortress to give an invuln bubble is pretty amazing. But if you went with the Promethean discipline, Fire Shield, Drakeskin, and Fury of Nocturne can fare pretty well. In either case, I've spent 1 additional command point to give him the Chief Librarian Warlord trait, which will allow him to add 1 to his Psychic tests. And for the free relic choice, he will be holding the Obsidian Aquila, which gives units nearby a 6-up Feel No Pain. At this point, we have a pretty mobilized list. 2 medium transports for the Melta tactical squads, and the repulsor holding the Flamestorm aggressors and commanders. Typically, this kind of setup does draw a lot of attention from your enemies. Transports are often carrying units for a purpose after all. I like to alleviate this by increasing threat saturation based on units with a similar defensive profile. With that in mind, the next 2 units are 2 Invictor Warsuits, of course taken with the Incendium cannons. Forward deploying with effectively 2 heavy flamers and combat capacity comparable to a Dreadnought will definitely add some immediate threat saturation. And to add a bit more target panic are 2 Contemptor Dreadnoughts taken with multi-meltas. Dreadnoughts are A+. Duty Eternal gives Dreadnoughts so much more value over conventional armored units. And with multi-meltas, these Contemptors are primed to take great advantage of the Salamander's tactical doctrine. And with a Dreadnought combat weapon, they are melee viable. The last unit of the list is the final troops choice. It's nothing too fancy, an Intercessor squad with an Astartes grenade launcher, and the Sergeant with a Power Fist. This group can serve as the rear guard for backline objectives, or for screening against highly aggressive mobile lists. And that's the list. It comes to 1996 points and provides 11 command points after giving the Chief Librarian a Warlord trait. What we have is a highly mobilized list loaded with flame and melta weapons, primed for the close-range firefight. So for anti-tank shooting options, we have the twin last Talon Repulsor with a Hunter Slayer missile, the 2 multi-melta combi-melta tactical squads, the 2 multi-melta Contemptors, and the 2 Hunter Killer missiles on the Razorbacks. And in melee, we have the 2 Contemptor Dreadnoughts and the 2 Warsuits, the Aggressors and the Intercessor Sergeant's Power Fists, and Adrax Agatone. For elite infantry and light vehicle shooting options, we have 2 twin heavy bolters on the Razorbacks, and the 2 single heavy bolters on the Invictor Warsuits. And in melee, we have all the Power Fist units. And providing anti-infantry fire support are the Flamestorm Aggressors, Adrax's Flamer, and the various bolt weapons and heavy stubbers across the Tactical Squad, Intercessors, Dreadnoughts, Invictors, and the Repulsor. Well, that's a wrap on this one. Thanks for watching. And a special thanks to my patrons, who help keep the dream alive. This was my Salamanders thematic list build. Hopefully the critique section wasn't too ranty or too long. Anywho, if you have any questions, comments, or requests, please feel free to drop them down below. And to my fellow Salamanders out there, surely I can't be the only one who feels like Adrax was shorted. Let me know how you feel in the comments. So if you enjoyed this video, there's a like button. And if you want to help my channel grow, there is a subscribe button. There is also a bell button and a share button, so press the buttons you want to press. Thanks again for watching, and I'll hope to see you guys in the next one. All Marines are getting 2 wounds.
That's great.